It marks 50 years since the infamous Beeching report, the document that sealed the fate of hundreds of rural railways across the nation. I went to the borders to find out about the single biggest closure and plans to bring it back to life. The Beeching report led to the closure of 5,000 miles of railway track and 2,000 stations across the UK. This viaduct just south of Galashiels once carried trains linking Edinburgh in the north with Carlisle in the south. It was known as the Waverley Line. And when the Beeching axe fell, it became one of the most protested closures in the country. The railway was seen as vital to the local economic prosperity of the borders. Lord David Steele, who later became MP for Roxburgh, Selkirk and Peebles, campaigned against the closure of the Waverley Line.
At the time of the Beeching report, I wasn't even the MP, and of course it became one of the big issues in the by-election in March 1965.
So what were your specific concerns about the Waverley Line going?
The impact locally on creating probably the largest part of Scotland without any railway. At least in the Highlands they have railways running through it, but here in the borders we were going to be left with nothing between Berwick and Carlisle.
Despite the best efforts of campaigners, the line did close in January 1969, but not before local protesters made one last stand right here at Newcastleton Level Crossing.
On that night sleeper, the last train out, we saw it off at Galashiels. There was a big demonstration there and a big demonstration at Hawick where they loaded a coffin onto the train addressed to the Minister of Transport. And then the press all left. We all thought that's it, finished. And I went to bed in the train, and it then stopped outside Newcastleton. One of the guards came along the line shouting my name, and he said, "Could you come down because the people are blocking the line?" So I got dressed and came down and discovered this huge, most of the people in the village and others from elsewhere I think were standing on the level crossing with the gates shut so the train couldn't go through. And they arrested the parish minister. Of course that really inflamed things, and eventually I did a deal with the crowd. I said, look, if I can go to the police and get the minister released without any charges, will you then agree to go? This was about 2 o'clock in the morning by this time. So they agreed that, and they eventually dispersed and allowed the train to go, and arrived in St Pancras Station in London about 2.5 hours late.
When the Waverley Line finally closed, stations like this at Fountain Hall lay dormant, and the borders became the first region in the UK without a rail link. Now, after years of campaigning, work has begun on re-establishing part of that line between Edinburgh and Tweed Bank.
We've got lots of challenges, particularly where the original railway was breached by roadworks over the years. Most notably, just south of where we're standing, we've got the Edinburgh City Bypass, and later on this year we're going to be putting a bridge under the Edinburgh City Bypass, one of the busiest roads in Scotland, so that's a terrific challenge. But beyond that, there's a viaduct across a roundabout. We've got hundreds of thousands of tonnes of earthworks to move where the railway cuttings were infilled, stations to build, and finally the track to lay.
So there's a huge amount of work to do, and that's going to cost a lot of money. What's the final figure?
The cost of the construction works is about £295 million.
So if everything goes to plan, the new Borders Railway will be up and running in 2015. And for the first time in over 40 years, passengers will be able to travel from Edinburgh to Tweed Bank directly by train.
I was on the last train out, and my ambition has always been to be on the first train back in again, and it looks as though that's going to happen.